Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Thursday, August the 7th. That makes this the news and events of Wednesday, August the 6th, 2025, day 1260 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, coming to you from this major European capital currently under siege. Anthony, Tommy Tom, how you doing, pal? Hey, Seawolf. There's Seawolf. Seawolf, can I say, your son, right? Nutmegger is the sponsor of tonight's live. We're very grateful to you and to Nutmegger, born in the Nutmeg state of Connecticut. And a joy to his parents, I'm sure. So thanks so much, Seawolf, and thanks to Nutmegger, too. Hey, Neil Steven. Hey, Bjorn. Hey, Refurb Man. Hey, Avi. How's everybody doing tonight? Van the Man. How you living? Hey, Carl. So everybody give a shout out. Thank Nutmegger for us as the sponsor of tonight's live. I have no sponsors the rest of the week, guys, or next week. So if anybody can sponsor live, that would be great. PayPal is in the description. I'm plugging along, pal. Plugging along. Hey, Chef Deb. Hey, Maddie Wright. Hey, Jan. Evening, Alice. Hey, Gary. Hey, Mad Mike. How is everybody doing tonight? Hey, Nightshade. Well, that would be great, Avi. I would really appreciate that. Thanks. Hey, there's Ted Greenow. How you doing, buddy? Hey, Roy Daniels. Hey, Clinkers Kelly. Charles Luciano, how do you do? Good evening, Jackie. Thank you, fellow Nutmegger. Maddie's another Nutmegger. Hey, Alice. Hey, Mike Kelly. Hey, Nicola. Hey, Dawn. Ooh, the gang is all here. Hey, Steve with a V. Ça va, Papi Josh? Evening, Marius. Do you think Ukraine can launch a counteroffensive this year? So, Polkin, every analyst that I listen to, or rather, among the analysts that I listen to, the consensus seems to be that should either Ukraine or Russia achieve any significant breakthrough in the front lines, both armies lack the necessary manpower to exploit such a gap in the lines. So, if, say, the front line in Zaporizhia were to break, it's possible that Russia could take Zaporizhia city. But that's it. That's the best they'd be able to do. Neither side has the manpower for any significant breakthrough. And today we had an awful lot happen on the diplomatic front that could strongly influence the next phase of the war. But it's very unclear, right? So a couple of things first here. Today is day 1260. Last night, the Russians sent 45 drones at the territory of Ukraine. 36 of them were shot down or suppressed with electronic warfare. That's an 80% interception rate on last night's drone attacks. The 9 that got through resulted in 7 folks unalived in Ukraine and another 37 wounded, including 3 children in Zaporizhia, where a school recreational center was hit. Because, of course, that's the strategic goal of the Russians, right? not to strike military infrastructure, not to degrade Ukraine's ability to prosecute the war, but rather to frighten the civilian population into submission to their great leaders in the Kremlin. So, Children's Recreation Center hit 4 children wounded in that attack. It is worth pointing out that today is the 1-year anniversary of the Kursk incursion. For 365 days, Ukrainian soldiers have been going to bed and waking up in control of Russian territory. 365 days. A major embarrassment to Putin. Frankly, what is far more embarrassing, in my opinion, is the fact that he declared victory, that Kursk was liberated. In fact, the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, made the same announcement. And despite South Korean intelligence, it is worth pointing out that we have not seen hide nor hair of any more North Korean troops coming into Kursk. Not yet. South Korean intelligence estimated that 25 to 30,000 would be arriving in Kursk by the end of July. That does not appear to have happened at this juncture. So I'm not sure what's going on with them. Have the attacks on rail infrastructure prevented those North Koreans from getting west from the Far East? Are the rail lines all muddled up? Well, the rail lines are definitely all muddled up, as are the airlines, as we all saw in the big breach of Aeroflot last week. People ask, now right now the Ukrainians are barely holding on to Russian territory by their own bleeding fingernails, right? In south of Tetkino, there's an incursion into Kursk there. The Ukrainians have been there for a whole year, and they are still holding on. The Ukrainians are holding on to a little bit of Kursk down south of Glishkovo. Then in Belgorod Oblast, the Ukrainians have their fingers in that pie too. Very small incursion, right? Like 13 square kilometers. I don't know how to convert that to miles, square miles in my head, because square is very different from linear. So no, I'm not going to try to do that right now. If somebody wants to do it, it's 13 square kilometers. That's all they got of Belgorod, but it's Russian territory in Ukrainian control for a year. Huge humiliation to Putin, who was further humiliated last week when his new nuclear submarine plans were leaked online. If anybody wants the schematics for the latest and greatest Russian nuclear sub, they are freely available. Go get them. Huge humiliation to Putin, the fact that the incursion took place at all, and that he had to bring in 15,500 North Korean soldiers to get them mostly out. Among those soldiers, 7,000 are thought to have been casualties, about half. Right now, that's KIA, WIA, and MIA. Killed in action, wounded in action, missing in action. That does not include the 1,000 POWs that were taken in Kursk. Not just North Koreans, but a mix of, I think only 2 North Koreans were taken alive. The reality, as we are learning, of the North Korean soldiery is that they are suicidal fanatics who, rather than allow themselves to be captured, will pull the pin on a grenade and try to take you with them rather than be captured. As people here know, on this 1-year anniversary of the Kursk incursion, I want to say what an incredible success I see it as having been. Huge damage to the Russian army, massive attrition, something like 77,000 casualties across the front over the course of the year. 77,000. KIA, WIA, and MIA. Now, right now, that very incursion, the fighting around Tetkino, is responsible for pinning 65,000 Russian troops in Russia, keeping them fighting on Russian soil and keeping them the fuck out of Ukraine. That alone is huge. Now the Ukrainians are still fighting them in Kursk, and so the 65,000 gets attrited, right, down to 60,000. What do? Where do they get the next 5,000 guys? They're pulling them out of Kherson and Zaporizhia. And this is important, I think, because what it looks like is happening is that as manpower shortages become more intense and equipment shortages become more intense, we're seeing the Russians pull equipment out of Crimea, Zaporizhia, and Kherson and sending it to Kursk. As they pull those troops and that equipment out of Crimea, Kherson, and Zaporizhia, they are hollowing out their own southern defensive front. They're hollowing it out. And one of the big things that we're seeing in this war is that the magnificent job that the Ukrainians have done in welding traditional military doctrine with modern digital assets, using AI and local knowledge to map the battle space, every square inch of it, to mine in a way that is in Zaporizhia, right? An area that the Russians are hollowing out of their own people. There was recently a large armored assault. It was 48 armored vehicles, I think 6 tanks, and then APCs and IFVs. I have some of this written down. Hold on, while we're on this subject. Zaporizhia, 48 armored vehicles, an entire battalion's worth of men and machines lost. Of the 48, 39 were destroyed or abandoned, later to be destroyed by Ukrainian drones. Because the Ukrainians aren't fighting like it's 1924. The Ukrainians are using AI to map the battle space, and then they're parking drones in trees like flocks, like murders of crows, just waiting to descend on any armored column that comes into view. The Ukrainians mapped down in Zaporizhia around Robotny, where this happened. They mapped the potential roads that a large armored column assault might take. And you know what they did? They mined that road. Now, they didn't use normal tank mines. They used remote control detonated mines. That meant that the tanks could drive right up to the contact line before they hit actual tank mines and started blowing up. And then when the tide of battle turned and they began retracing their steps over the ground that they had already gone over, ground that should be safe, the Ukrainians waited, the spotter drones watched, and when they got to a certain point, they remote detonated those mines, chain gun style, boom, 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 one right after another. And so in the retreat, we saw 11 vehicles abandoned and then later destroyed by drones. And that was just one. Now, guys, one of the things that's definitely happening is that the very nature of the war is changing fundamentally. These old-style armored column assaults are being defeated by the drone wall that the Ukrainians have erected along the front line. We're seeing it also. We just saw it over the weekend in Sumy. Now, this was not a large armored column assault. It was a large infantry assault. We believe it was 8 companies, and a company is about 100 people. So over 800 people were trying to advance many of them from the 155th Marine Brigade, were trying to advance in Sumy, reclaim Kondrativka, which was recently lost. According to the Ukrainian armed forces, 334 were KIA of the 800 plus, and another 550 were wounded. That's 8 companies of men. That's as many as 2 battalions in one engagement in one day in Sumy. Now, we come down the front to Seversk, and we've seen multiple small armored columns of 4 and 5, 1 tank and 3 APCs, accompanied by as many as 41 motorcycles and a couple of Desert Cross buggies. And we've seen a mortality rate in those attacks of as much as 60% of everybody coming in. The biggest one of these happened in Donetsk. It was over 70 vehicles, something like 28 tanks, and then a bunch of armor, and then a bunch of motorcycles and civilian cars. It is estimated that in that one failed offensive in Donetsk, the largest of the summer offensive, Russia lost $350 million in hardware. $250 million in hardware, plus 220 KIA and 300 WIA. The Ukrainians have managed to take the best of classic warfare and apply it to a new 3-dimensional battle space where air assets are not jets flying at Mach 2, but are little drones carrying an extraordinary array of weapons. We're seeing these drones drop grenades. The Dragonfire drones are back. Is Tony Takiri here by any chance? The Dragonfire drones are back, and we're seeing thermite pour on Russian troops in the east. The Ukrainians have introduced a new, the company is called, I have it here, Technori. So it's a Ukrainian company called Technori. This was reported in the ISW today, the Institute for the Study of War. Reported on a reusable interceptor drone called the Mongoose. The Mongoose is a drone for taking out drones. It shoots a projectile. It can travel at 300 kilometers an hour, about twice what a Shahed travels at. So it can not only intercept, it can catch up to standard Shaheds. It can only intercept the jet-propelled ones that travel at about twice the speed. But there's opportunity for that because these are jet-powered. They've got a jet engine and an auto-homing system. So when they encounter an enemy out there, an enemy drone, they shoot it down, and then they return to home for refueling and re-outfitting. 300 kilometers an hour, 15,000 feet, or 5 kilometers up. An impressive new tool in the drone arsenal to help defend the Ukrainian space from these incoming Russian drones. That is not the only drone innovation we are seeing this week. The 63rd Mechanized Brigade, who is famous for drone innovations, particularly ground drones, has introduced, are you ready for this new innovative design? Remember how they fit shotguns on drones now to take drones out? They've now got drones fitted with rocket-propelled grenade launchers and rocket-propelled grenades. And apparently the targeting on these is fucking awesome. So they got a laser sight. Targeting is great. I was really surprised because my first question was, how did they deal with the recoil? The recoil on the shotgun drones was so much work. and such a complex problem to solve. I thought for sure that for an RPG, it would be even greater. Now, maybe there's some men here that have fired these RPGs. They don't have recoil. They have backblast. And so, in fact, the problem of recoil was probably much easier to deal with the RPGs than it was with the fucking shotguns. And so I have a high degree of confidence that the lessons learned from dealing with shotgun recoil made this a walk in the park. From everything that I read today about backblast and how it's much less recoil than one would ever imagine from such a thing. I don't know. Has anybody here ever fired an RPG? Boom, baby. Drayman, exactly. Boom, baby. So, look, the point of this discussion is that, and we all know this, right? There's nothing new here. Ukraine is redefining the nature of warfare in the 21st century. Ukraine is a bunch of guys working together to figure it out to deliver asymmetric results in a fight where they don't have as many men. They don't have as much equipment. They cannot afford, the Ukrainians cannot afford to lose $350 million in armor in a day. Now, the problem is the Russians can't either. But they keep doing it. And that's going to catch up to them. Arna has fired an RPG. Of course you have, pal. And he says no recoil. So I guess the big thing with the RPGs, right, is that it's like a hollow tube. And the backblast, the ignition of the rocket, goes out the back. Just goes out the back. Much of it, right? I'm not saying that there isn't some thing that you got to deal with there. But I bet you it was much easier to construct that after they had gone through the experience of the shotgun drones. Ukraine is training British soldiers on drones up on Salisbury Plain. Dude, they're training. This is going to be a bright future for a lot of Ukrainians after this war. Traveling to other countries, other people's armies, and doing training for them, with them. We have already seen the Ukrainians spread this knowledge to the Sudanese, the Malayans, the Syrians, and the British, right? And America has signed up too. Ukraine is using their brains, the orcs are using their bodies. The worst part, Maggie, is that it's not that the orcs are using their bodies. They're using the bodies of their people, right? The people in charge who think they own the Russians. Not just the land and the buildings and everything, but the people themselves. And that those people are disposable in pursuit of their own interests. Okay, so we see this incredible drone innovation that is leading to this asymmetric warfare. We're living in a world where there are drone operators in Pokrovsk who have 1,000 confirmed kills. One kid with a joystick has taken 1,000 Russian soldiers off the battlefield. And that's why Pokrovsk hasn't fallen. Now, the Russians, faced with this whole other world that they are not ready for, have figured out that the best thing that they can do is send 3 to 5 guys at a time to sneak through the holes in the drone wall, to try to sneak in under the cover of night, under a thermal blanket, and try to get in the basement of a house. And then 3 more Russians come the next day. And after a week, you got 20 guys. Now you can burst out of there, ambush Ukrainians. These infiltration groups are what's happening in Toretsk and Chasiv Yar. As one can imagine, moving like that, even in small groups across the open fields of the eastern steppe of Ukraine, means that the Russians are taking very heavy losses. And we see it, right? Every single day, It's right now, it's been hovering for the whole month of August. What is that, 6 days? It's been hovering at about 1,000 men a day lost. These infiltration groups are very active in Torets, Chasiv Yar, and in Pokrovsk. And now we see these infiltration and sabotage groups increasingly in the suburbs and outskirts of Pokrovsk. They're entering the city. So we all want to be prepared for the potential loss of Pokrovsk. Now look, if anybody can hang on to it, the Ukrainians can. But they've been doing it for 26 months now. It's taken the Russians 26 months to go the 60 kilometers or so, 40 miles, from Bakhmut to Pokrovsk. And it's cost them tens of thousands of lives. And there's nothing left of the city. I mean, artillery's been within range of the city for some time, and the Russians have been systematically destroying it block by block. I want to say there were 50,000 people in Pokrovsk about 8 months ago. I believe the last number I saw was that it was down to 1,300 civilians, right? This asymmetric warfare let the Ukrainians stay in Kursk all that time, a year. So I want to wish the Ukrainians a very happy 1-year anniversary of holding Russian territory. Now you can't believe anything Trump says. You can't believe anything the Kremlin says. And so between Trump and the Kremlin, I don't know what of this to believe. So some of this appears to be true. Trump has imposed another 25% tariff on India, bringing the Indian tariffs to 50%. And he is saying that extra 25, 10 is the base, and then he's punishing India because they're in BRICS with 15%. So that's a 25% tariff. And now he's saying this 25% tariff is to punish you for buying Russian oil. I mean, India is supposed to be our friend. It's not to mention what it'll do to the U.S. economy. The United States imports about $3 billion a year from Russia right now. We import over $63 billion in goods and services from India. 63. He's threatening. What he's just done is put a $30 billion tax on the American people for anything made in India. I don't know. I don't know of any economy in history that was taxed into good health. That's not a thing. So very, very strange. I mean, it seems to me like he could be bluffing, right? It could all be a bluff to put pressure on Putin, the threat of the loss of Indian-Russian gas sales or oil sales. Could be. And that as soon as Putin agrees to a ceasefire, he'll remove it. That remains to be seen. It remains to be seen if Putin will agree to a ceasefire. Now, we just got word, this news broke about an hour and a half ago. Trump is to meet with Putin within the week. Now, I don't know. This is according to the New York Times. The New York Times broke this story about an hour and a half ago. Trump is supposed to meet with Putin as early as next week, is what the Times said. Now, this could be in response to Trump's threats of sanctioning the shadow fleet and the threats around tariffs on India and China. The two countries account for 50% of all Russian crude oil sales today. If India and China were to stop buying that oil, that would literally cut Russia's oil sales in half. In half. And that's a problem because Russia doesn't have any spare storage capacity. It's basically storing extra oil on shadow fleet vessels at sea because it has no storage capacity. If its sales to Russia, to China and India suddenly stopped, it would have to start shutting down wells because it won't have any place to put the oil, especially given the way that the Ukrainians have now been targeting oil storage infrastructure. The Russians are losing one, 2,000 cubic meter tank a day at the current rate. In addition to this idea that's being floated, now look, I cannot imagine for 1 second that Donald Trump is going to go to Moscow. And I cannot imagine for 1 second that Vladimir Putin is going to leave Moscow. So I don't know how the two are going to meet. This does not make any sense to me, but this is according to reporting in the New York Times. Putin is insisting that before any ceasefire agreement can be reached, he must be granted de facto control over all of the illegally annexed territories, even those areas that no Russian soldier has ever set foot in. It's insane. And he wants from the government in Kyiv a formal renunciation of its NATO aspirations. Now, one cannot imagine that the Ukrainians would ever agree to this. But Donald Trump is saying that in today's meeting between Putin and Steve Witkoff, Trump's envoy to Russia, there was great progress made. Trump followed. So Witkoff met with Putin today for 3 hours. We don't really know what was discussed other than the war was discussed. Yeah, Dre, man, I'm thinking none of it's going to happen as well. I am. Putin and Witkoff met for 3 hours. This is just 2 days ahead of Friday, which is the new 10-day deadline for Trump. Moscow has called or has asked for another meeting to finalize plans, I guess, for a ceasefire, is what they're saying. They also seem to have on the table an air ceasefire, an end to the air campaign of drones and missiles against the two countries. I cannot imagine that Zelensky will agree to an air ceasefire. Not right now when Russia's on fire because of it. Not right now when Russia's economy, walking along the cliff edge, is now teetering. So much so that they've had to stop the export of any refined oil products. Air ceasefire because Ukraine is literally lighting up Moscow every night. Exactly, Bip. Exactly. Not only that, we have another problem with the Russians. They say that they're sending 15,000 men into Belarus for the Zapad exercises that the Union state members, Belarus and Russia, have on a regular basis. Now, the last one of these was in January and February of 2022 and was used as a cover for moving, I forget now, I want to say 75,000, maybe 100,000 Russian troops into Belarus to pour over the border and attack Kyiv from the north. And that's when we saw that 41-mile long convoy of armored trucks and tanks that the Ukrainians just kept picking off one at a time once they got stuck. They never moved again. Amazing, right? So the Zapad exercises are coming up again, and Russia says it's sending 15,000 troops. Western intelligence agencies are suggesting that they're sending 10 times that. And there is growing concern that these Zapad exercises happening in Belarus in September are actually cover for another operation against Kyiv, another invasion of Ukraine from the north, from Belarusian territory. Now, we don't know that to be true, but it is of real concern. Analysts are suggesting that the movement of equipment and resources indicates a force 10 times the size what the Russians are suggesting. So we shall see. Now, the Kyiv Post is saying that Keith Kellogg is going to visit Kyiv. Not sure when that's going to happen. Not sure if Trump is going to be with him. Maybe Putin will come to Kyiv. What do you think? Yeah, no, that's never going to happen. So against this backdrop, Trump did call the meeting between Witkoff and Putin great progress. Then he had the call with Zelensky, in which he agreed to greenlight $200 million in aid to Ukraine. Now, that $200 million is a sale. It's a cash money sale. It is not a gift. It's $104 million for M777 howitzer repair, maintenance, and upgrades. And then another $99.5 million in logistics and transportation services. This shit really burns my ass. The Biden administration gave the Ukrainians a bunch of M777 howitzers, right? Now Trump is like, hey, you know, you can only get 2,000 shots out of that barrel, right? You're going to need new barrels, pal. Hey, you're going to need maintenance. Well, you know what? Give me $100 million. I'll make sure you get it. I mean, really, it's like a drug dealer. Hey, buddy, the first one's free. This one's free. Right now, you need to maintain. Now we're going to bleed you dry. It's so upsetting to me, the whole thing. We are, however, the only nation state currently preying on the Ukrainians in this predatory fashion, us and the Russians. Norway, Sweden, and Denmark announced $490 million in purchases of U.S. weapons for Ukraine. On top of that, the Netherlands announced 500 million euros, about $550, for Patriot parts and interceptors. So the European allies are keeping things afloat and providing the financing and equipment for Ukraine to continue to be successful, to continue to retrench and hold the Russians at bay in an asymmetric warfare scenario where the battle space is not controlled by those who have the might, but rather by those who control the algorithms. The algorithms of AI mapping, generative AI, multiple, I can't say that. Who said it before? Bip said it? Brains. The zombies of the Russian Federation want to eat your brains. The folks in Ukraine want to feed your brains. The Ukrainian Prosecutor's General's Office opened the third case of Russian soldiers who had murdered a civilian in Donetsk. So this is the third such case in Donetsk since the start of the year. There are hundreds of these cases. In this case, we have video from a spotter drone of a couple of Russian soldiers just shooting the guy in the street as he's trying to flee. He's got a suitcase. He was trying to flee Odachny, over in the Pokrovsk direction. Shot him down like a dog in the street. And that's the third civilian. If you're on the Patreon, you saw the video of the guy on the bicycle being shot. And then there was one other incident earlier in the year. The Russian army does seem to be getting a little desperate around Pokrovsk. They are dropping leaflets on the city, encouraging Ukrainians to point out or report to them the movements and positions of Ukrainian troops. And the leaflets are a little like threatening too, but they talk about help us liberate your city sooner. And so there's this appeal for the Ukrainians to sell out the Ukrainian armed forces. This smells of a certain amount of desperation created by a lack of intelligence. The Ukrainians don't have to ask people in the temporarily occupied territories, where are the Russian soldiers? The Ukrainians know exactly where the Russian soldiers are. We see them moving around, bright white dots in the night camera settings. We know where they are right before the RPG hits them. In Rostov last night, we saw an S-300 missile cold launch failure. So the missile deployed out of the launch tube, then the secondary ignition failed, and so the missile just plummeted to Earth. Now, we don't know exactly what was hit, but we have video from residents of Rostov-on-Don filming ambulance after ambulance, fire truck after fire truck, rushing to the airbase where this S-300 missile failure launch was. So clearly somebody was hurt, or you wouldn't have had 24 ambulances reporting to the scene. So we're waiting on a damage assessment there. We don't know exactly what happened, but we know that there was a large response to it. In Kherson, we saw an ammo dump cook-off, one of those big field ammo dumps that the Russians like. And then Russia's trying to push into Dnipropetrovsk, but the drone wall is stopping them in their tracks for now. Okay, last but not least, because this really goes to the point, do yourself a favor. If you've never done this before, do a Google search for maps that of countries that Russia considers unfriendly, and another search for maps, countries you can drink the water in. The overlay is amazing. You put countries that Russia thinks are unfriendly over the map of countries where you can drink the water, and it's the same map. It's basically the same map. So, and why is that? The reason for that is because in a civilized democracy, the very first thing you have to do is provide clean drinking water to everybody and indoor plumbing. This is not a joke. I thought about doing a video on this. This is not a joke. Somewhere way up in the north, like by Arkhangelsk, by the Arctic Circle, in Russia, a woman, an 80-year-old woman, could not get permission from the city planners to put a toilet inside her house because the house was built in 1900. A toilet is not contemporaneous with the structure. You have to keep pissing outside at 80 years old in minus 30 Celsius temperatures for the entire month of January every fucking year you stay alive. That's what the city council told her, or the city planners, whoever it is, the commerçant. Well, you know what she did? She got a toilet installed. Now the city planners are making her pull it out. forcing her to go back. Seawolf, can you imagine doing that to a person in the 21st century? It's insanity. Autocratic regimes can't supply clean water. Flint, Michigan. Autocratic regimes can't do the basic things because they are fundamentally dysfunctional. In Donetsk, we saw a video this weekend of an elite, so-called elite, member of Russia's paratroopers VDV, drinking water from a puddle in Donetsk because there's no water in Donetsk. You know why there's no water in Donetsk? Because when the Russians pushed out of Donetsk city into Donetsk Oblast, the main water pipe that brought water to the area was shot to hell. It leaks. It leaks completely. And of course, the incompetence of the regime there means that it doesn't get fixed. So the people in Donetsk, the people in the so-called Donetsk People's Republic, don't have clean water. There are videos online, you can see them for yourself, of people complaining that their water is red, or it's mucky, or gray, or it's got shit floating in it, literally, right? Or that it doesn't, the tap just drips. There's no water pressure. So there are videos now online increasingly of like citizens of Donetsk cheering when the water truck arrives so that they have potable water for a few days. Putin actually ordered 88 water tankers from Moscow down to Donetsk to deliver potable water to the people. But it's unclear that they're actually there or that they're able to do that because the situation continues to get worse. Kids, just yesterday, a bunch of kids in Donetsk made a video. And it's so embarrassing. Please, Uncle Vova, meaning Vladimir Putin, please hear us like they're praying to him. It is such a disgusting act of submission and humiliation to the Tsar, who created the situation that they're in and does not give a fuck. And these children praying to the dear Tsar, oh, Uncle Vova, if you only knew how we were suffering, we know that you would fix it. Really? People will believe anything. It's unreal. The Russians, of course, are blaming Ukraine, telling the locals that Ukraine cut off their water supply. The evidence to that is non-existent. The evidence that the Russians, in their push to quickly take Donetsk at the start of the war, destroyed the water supply, there's ample evidence of. Autocratic regimes can't deliver basic necessities to the people. And the people of America are quickly finding this out as we watch our own institutions deteriorate under the malign foreign influence of Donald Trump. All right, big thanks to Nutmegger, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. Thanks, Seawolf. Everybody thanks Seawolf for us, please. Big thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server, Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces, and, of course, to the moderator team, best moderators on the Tickety Talk, Maddie, Feisty, Jay, Pete, and Travis. And then it's open Q&A, guys. What do you want to talk about? We got 9 minutes. Hey, Sammy from Kalina Studios. Hey, Jeff Clark. Does Ukraine pay McDonnell Douglas defense suppliers? What? I mean, so home time, we're living in a world now where under Biden, aid was granted to Ukraine. Trump tried to charge Ukraine for what Biden sent. Ukraine told Trump to go fuck himself. He's not getting that money. Okay, so now Trump is only selling things to Ukraine or permitting the sale. McDonnell Douglas, I'm unaware of any specific contracts with McDonnell Douglas that have been. I mean, what does McDonnell Douglas make? They make airplanes, right? I don't know what else. So I'm unaware of any contracts with McDonnell Douglas and the Ukrainians. Well, babe, we did talk about the Steve Witkoff meeting. They met for 3 hours. We don't really know what they talked about, but afterwards, Trump called Zelensky. He said they had a good call. Trump said that the meeting with Witkoff and Putin was great progress was made in, which seems extraordinarily unlikely. But you can't believe anything Trump says. So the fact he said that probably means that that's not what happened. He did authorize in the call with Zelensky, he authorized a $200 million arms sale for M777 howitzer maintenance, repair, and upgrade. And then another 99 or 95 million, I want to say. Altogether, about 200 million in logistics and transportation support. Also, we have word that Trump and Putin are going to meet as soon as next week. That seems very unlikely. Joey said Russians are taking cities over in Russia. I don't know what that means, Refurb Man. No, Flip, it's been quiet. It's been very quiet on air attacks here in Kyiv. This was the first weekend in 8 weekends that we did not have a drone swarm of 250 or more come in. I was very surprised. I slept great all weekend, then could not sleep last night. Don't know why. Now, Flip, I want to say, because you're coming to Kyiv, the thing that everybody's afraid of is that the Russians are like stocking up for a big one. Like maybe 1,000 drones at once. We'll see. We'll see. Somebody said he was looking to put nukes up there. Nana Pam, our nukes are already there. That was the thing about it that was so appalling to me. We have a nuclear deterrent. We have 14 Ohio-class submarines out there in the ocean. Nobody knows where. And nobody ever talks about them. Everybody knows they're there. Everybody knows they're within strike distance of Moscow. All the time. We don't have to make nuclear threats. We can make phone calls. So, look, the whole thing with Trump was so embarrassing because if he had to move the subs closer to Russia, that means the thing that everybody knows is true, that our nuclear deterrence is out there working and that Moscow is always in our sights, that must not be true, and that Trump had to move the subs there. I would love to have been in the room after he sent that truth when somebody rushed in from the Joint Chiefs of Staff and explained to him, Mr. President, sir, I'm sorry, we don't have to move our subs to be able to hit Moscow. That's not a thing. So yeah, he did some nuclear saber rattling, and it made us look stupid and weak. Hmm. 10 days is up on Friday, bro. If that's what you're talking about. Maybe you're talking about something else. I think this stuff from Trump is just for show. Yeah, Michael, it might be. We just don't know. Ukraine can acquire weapons through anyone, through absolutely anyone. Okay, guys, we got 4 minutes left. Anything else? Empty threats, taco. Trump always chickens out, right? We shall see. We shall see. So again, guys, big thanks to our sponsor for tonight, Nutmegger. Thank you so much, Seawolf. Please give your family our best. Big thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server, Nightshade, who has the Peters Peeps group, and of course, to the moderator team, best moderators on the Tickety Talk. I don't have any sponsors for Thursday or Friday or for next week. If anybody wants to sponsor live, PayPal is in the description. Thanks, Mike Kelly. Oh, Ben Tilley, countermeasures have come and gone in this war. Are you kidding? Dude, we're like on Gen 7 of drone, electronic warfare countermeasure, new drone, electronic warfare countermeasure, new drone. I mean, dude, no, what you're saying is not a thing, pal. It's constant countermeasure, measure, countermeasure, measure. Russia's largest ship is sinking. The Admiral Kutsanov. It's nothing but 90 tons, I think. No, 190 tons. Big fucking ship of scrap metal. Is the record 270,000, Lars? Is it over 250,000? Get the hell out of here. Is it really? That's crazy. You guys are nut jobs. Yeah, the submarine hack by Ukraine. I was listening to a guy from the British Navy talk about it today, and I really did not understand how important it was. It was Times Radio. The Times Radio interviewed a British naval guy today, and that was very insightful. I might try to boil that down to a video. Oh, yeah, I saw that. What did they post? They posted a loss, right? I can't remember if it was rubles or dollars I saw. But Russia's largest shipbuilder, who builds both private civilian, like cruise ships, yachts, that kind of thing, and military ships for the Russian Navy, is apparently bankrupt or close to it. They posted a loss last month of, I can't remember. No, I don't know. Good night, Akron. Man, I'd love a weekend in Ohio. I really would. I like Ohio. Go up by the lake. Check out the Cincinnati Zoo, maybe. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been in Ohio. Thanks, Jerry-O. Night, mate. Oh, I'm sorry. That was Dick Van Dyke, not Irish. Not even close. So sorry, pal. Oh, I like Oklahoma. I do. I'll tell you, the last time I was in Oklahoma, right, I didn't know that tumbleweed could be an allergen, that there are people who are allergic or particularly sensitive to tumbleweed. And it was one of the few times in my life that I was in an area where there was a lot of fucking tumbleweed. So I started working with it. I was doing like found art sculpture, right? Like just piling it up into this giant kind of Zen topiary garden of tumbleweeds. That's a strange sentence to put together, isn't it? A Zen topiary garden of tumbleweeds. But that's exactly what I was doing. I had the RV. I was parked at a campground. I was hanging out with these people from Michigan. Michigan, love Michigan. And we were doing this fun stuff with tumbleweeds. Well, the next morning I woke up, I thought I was going to die. I was splotched red, burning flesh from head to toe. Unreal. I went straight to the hospital. They gave me a shot, like an EpiPen kind of a thing. And I was much better immediately. Thanks, Flip. I hope so too, that it's quiet. And I hope it's quiet for your visit. I hope that this hiatus here, we stay on this little while. 64 out in Seattle today. Seattle's great. I love Seattle. I worked out of an office in Seattle for 6 years. And we would kind of be forced to go there once a quarter for a week at a time. I'm really a big fan of Seattle. I think my two favorite days in Seattle are New Year's Eve and summer. Yay, it didn't rain. Cortisone, I forget what they did, but they gave me something. Night, Ted. Night, Gary. Okay. Tulsa. I never spent any time in Tulsa. I only went through there to get to Cherry Creek, which is a little town a friend of mine is from. Her mother still lives there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, friends, Romans, countrymen, and other non-binary folks, thanks so much. I'm going to get some sleep. Make it a great day.